Again, thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have not already done so, please be sure to subscribe to Learn to Spell and also make sure you turn on those notifications so that you can know first when we are going to be doing other live streams like this or when other videos will be posted to the channel. So today we are focusing on homonyms, homophones, and homographs. And I'm going to explain to you what each of those is, the difference between those three terms, and we are going to go through a long list of homonyms today. And then next week we will go through homophones, and then the following week we will go through homographs because I really want you to be able to understand the differences between these three terms. A lot of people get them confused. I see a lot of misinformation out there on Google and on tons of websites and videos confusing these three terms. So it's important for you to know what each of the terms mean and what words, commonly misspelled words, fall under which category. So we are going to go over all of that today. So, how can you tell the difference between those three words? What's the difference between a homonym, a homophone, and a homograph? They sound pretty similar, right? So they all have the same prefix, and the suffixes are what's different, and that's really essentially what tells each of those three words apart. So let's continue to see exactly what I'm talking about. So if you look at the word homonym, you will see that the part that is underlined is homo, or the prefix of this word is homo. And homo is, in the Greek language, means same. And if you were not aware, the majority of words in the English language are derived from Greek and Latin. So if you really want to delve into vocabulary and learn a lot of vocabulary, one of my suggestions would be to learn Greek and Latin roots, because if you can learn those, then you definitely would have an easier time figuring out the meanings to a lot of these words. But again, homo in Greek means same. What about the suffix nym? Well, it's also a Greek word and it actually means word. So a homonym is something with same and something with a word. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit more in depth. A homonym is really what we call in English a multiple meaning word. It is a word that sounds the same as another word, it's spelled the same as another word, but it has a different definition. Okay, and an example of that is the word fair, Fair, fair. So there are a couple of different ways to use the word fair. Let's take a look at this first sentence. It says, it is, I see a little typo there, that should read, it is not fair that I got in trouble, but he did not. Okay, so in that instance, the word fair is being used as, well, it's not right that he got in trouble, that I got in trouble and he did not. Or we're not being treated equally. Okay, in the second sentence, though, we have that same word fair. It's spelled the same and it sounds the same, but it has a completely different meaning. So in this sentence, it says, we went to the fair and rode all of the rides. So in this example, the fair is a place. A fair is very similar to a carnival. So it's a place that you go to that has fair food and rides and all those different types of things. And it's the same word, fair is the same word, but it has at least two different meanings. And again, it is pronounced the same in both instances, and it is spelled the same in both instances. So that is an example of a homonym. And again, if you haven't already done so, just a reminder to go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on those notifications. So what is a homophone? Again, we have that very same prefix, homo, which is the Greek word for same. And what's different here is the suffix phone. Okay, phone or phono is actually Greek for the word sound. So anytime that you see phone or phono in a word, it is Greek for sound. So here we're talking about words that have the same sound. A more appropriate definition is that a homophone is a word that sounds the same as another word, but it has a different spelling and it has a different meaning. So let me give you an example of that. An example is the word flower. Okay, so we have a flower like the plant, and that is spelled Flower. But then we also have flour like the powdery substance that you use to bake, and that is spelled Flour. Now again, both of these words have the same sound. They're pronounced exactly the same. However, they are spelled differently. We have two different spellings here, and they have different meanings. So that is an example of a homophone. And thirdly, we have a homograph. So again, we have the same prefix. Homo means same. And what does graph mean? Well, graph is the Greek root for write or to write. So let's take a look at what the definition is here. You might be able to figure it out on your own if you know that homo means same and graph means right, but let's take a look. Okay, a homograph is a word that is spelled the same as another word, but it has a different sound and it has a different meaning. So the spelling is the same, but the sound, the word is pronounced differently depending on what the word means. So they do not have the same sound, nor do they have the same meaning, but they are spelled the same. So an example of this is BOW. In the first instance, that word is pronounced bow. Okay, so if you bow to someone, let's say when I met the Queen of England, I was supposed to bow to her. Again, it's spelled the same in both instances, but it's pronounced bow and it has a different meaning than the word bow. Okay, this second word here is, and you'll see the picture next to it, it is a bow, and that's like a ribbon that's tied up all nice and fancy. That is a bow. So notice it's pronounced differently than bow, but they're both spelled the same, right? They both have the same spelling of BOW, but they have different pronunciation, so you don't say them the same. And also they have different meanings. Okay, so that is an example of a homograph. So they are written the same in a homograph. It's the same writing, but the meaning is different and the sound is different. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the difference between a homonym, a homophone, and a homograph. And if you want to go back through, I suggest you just pause and, go back through that section of the video before we continue. You are free to do so. We'll still be here with the live stream. No problems. Okay. So today we are talking specifically about homonyms. And again, homonyms are words that have the same, it's a same word, okay? So these are those multiple meaning words. And these are commonly misused in the English language because, specifically when speaking, because, if you don't know the different possible definitions of a word, you may, when you're having a conversation with someone, think that they're talking about one thing and they're using the word one way, but actually they're using it another way. They're looking at a different definition for the same word. So we're going to go through several examples of homonyms today. If you want to, I would suggest that you write these down as well as some definitions for the words. But once the live stream is over, you can always go back through this video. It will be posted to learn to spell. So let's talk about some homophones, okay? Now, and I just said this, but remember, homophones sound the same and are spelled the same, but they do have different definitions. And here's the thing, homonyms, there are some homonyms that have multiple, can have 4, 5, 6 definitions or even more. We're not going to cover every single definition when we go through some of these words today. We are going to cover typically what are the most used definitions for some of these words, but just know that if you see 2 examples of the words, that does not mean that there are not more definitions or more meanings for these words that we can find in the English language. And I'll talk about that a little bit more with some of the examples that you'll see on the screen. But again, before we move forward, if you have not already done so, be sure to hit subscribe down below. It should be on the bottom right-hand side of your video. If not, under the video, there is a button or a word that says subscribe. Be sure that you click there. Also, once you do subscribe, be sure to turn on notifications so that you will know when we are doing some more of these live streams and live sessions. So, let's see if our video, there we go. So our first example is the word scale. What I want you to do is think of some examples or definitions that you know of for the word scale. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And if you were able to think of multiple examples or uses for the word scale, then you will see that scale is a multiple meaning word. So some examples of this are scale can be seen as a measurement tool, as in this first example here, we have a scale, right? That's what we use to weigh food or maybe to weigh ourselves. But we also have scale as in climbing. So the first one, a scale, that is a noun, so a person, place, thing, or idea. Whereas the second example of the word scale, or the second use of the word scale, is a verb. So you are actually doing something. Now, the first sentence or the first use of the word, I'll give you an example, would be I step on the scale to weigh myself every morning. So that's that first use of the word scale. And again, we are using scale as a noun in the first example. But look at this second example. My goal is to scale Mount Everest in June. So we have a different meaning there than the first scale. We're talking specifically about an action. I want to scale or climb Mount Everest in June. So again, scale is a multiple meaning word. We can use it in many different ways, and those are just 2 examples or 2 definitions for the word scale. Now let's take a look at the word ruler. When you think about a ruler, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Okay, so now that you have that first image in your mind, can you think of any other definitions for the word ruler? What is a ruler? Well, look, we have a ruler as in a measurement tool. So we're talking a lot about measuring or measurement today. But we can also have a ruler like a king or a queen or someone who rules over a country or a territory. So let's look at some examples for each of these uses. Let's look at some sentences. So that first sentence says, I used a ruler to measure the length of the wall. So in this example, we're talking about that measurement tool that has the different markings on it. We're talking about the ruler in this example is a noun. And in the second sentence, it says, in the movie The Little Mermaid, King Triton is the ruler of the sea. So The Little Mermaid is one of my favorite movies. If you've ever seen that movie, the Little Mermaid's name is Ariel, and King Triton is her father. And King Triton rules over all of the mer people. So King Triton is a ruler. Now, that in that definition of the word ruler, it is also a noun. So you'll see you can have multiple meanings of the same word and they still have the same part of speech. So in that first example, we have a noun, that measurement tool, and in the second example or the second sentence, we also have a noun, but in that example, we're talking specifically about someone who is in charge of a territory, a land, or a group of people. Our next example is the word date. Now, I've given you some images here to maybe help you think about those different definitions. If you think about the definitions for the word date, these are three that I could think of off of the top of my head. Maybe you can come up with some more. Maybe there are some other definitions of the word date, but we are going to talk about the three here. So our first sentence says, I went on a date last night with my boyfriend. So that would mean that my boyfriend and I went out somewhere, maybe to the movies, maybe out to dinner, and it was a date or a romantic outing, right? The second sentence says, I added a date to my salad to make it sweeter. So in that example, we're talking about a fruit. A date is a type of fruit that can be used or, of course, can be eaten. And in that third example or the third sentence, it says today's date is January 1st. So we're talking specifically about a position in time, right? We're talking about a day in time. So we're talking about something that can be viewed on a calendar, something that is a date, really. So these are three different examples of how to use the word date. It can either be like an outing, it can be a fruit, or it can be a time period. So next up, let's take a look at the word bear. Now, I only have one example here, one image here of a bear. It's probably the first one that comes to your mind when you think of the word bear. But I do have on the next slide, it's more of an abstract concept. Take a few moments to see if you can think of what I thought of when I heard the word bear. Okay, so let's take a look at this first sentence. And again, this is the abstract concept that I could not quite put into uh, an image or find an image for. But it says, I can't bear to see you cry. It makes me sad. So in this example, bear, B-E-A-R, is the meaning of that word is I can't tolerate something, or I can't stand to see you cry. Like I am unable to grasp the concept. I just can't do it. Okay, so I can't bear to see you cry. It makes me sad. And the second sentence, it says the black bear was roaming the campsite in search of food. So in that example, we're thinking specifically about a mammal. We're thinking about the animal, the noun, the actual bear, the image that we saw on the last slide. Now, there is also another word for bear, and I'm not going to talk about it too much this week because it has a different spelling. So we have bear, B-E-A-R, like that we're talking about right now, but there is also a bear as in B-A-R-E. Now, think about why I am choosing not to talk about that bear today. Okay, think about in the beginning when I talked about homonyms, homophones, and homographs. And if you can, tell me out loud right now what B-A-R-E would be in relation to B-E-A-R. Are those homonyms, homographs, or homophones? Okay, and we'll come back to that next week, but see if you can figure it out on your own, and if you can figure out why I'm not going over B-A-R-E, bear, today. What category does that fall under? And next up, oh, again, before we continue, make sure that you subscribe and turn on those notifications if you have not already done so. If you have, then thank you so much. If you know anyone who would benefit from Learn to Spell, the spelling practice, and also the vocabulary practice, like what we're doing today, please let them know about the channel and encourage them to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. So our next word is the word park. Okay, P-A-R-K. I have two images here for the word park. And let's take a look at our sentences. The first sentence is our neighborhood park has the best playground in the entire city. And the second sentence is if you park your car there, it will be towed away. So in that first sentence, we are talking about a place, right? We're talking about a place that you can go to a physical place. So this is a noun, some place where you can exercise or just relax. At many parks, there are playgrounds. Maybe it's a dog park where you would take your dog to play. But we're talking about that open space of land that is used by individuals or groups to, maybe get some fresh air or just have some fun outdoors. Now, the second park, again, the sentence is if you park your car there, it will be towed away. That is an example of a verb. So it's something that you are doing. You've driven your car and you are parking it, leaving it in park. And in this instance, if it's parked there, it will be towed away. So someone is parking illegally. Okay, so the same word, but multiple meanings or multiple definitions or multiple uses for the word. Now let's take a look at the word saw. The first sentence says, I saw it with my own two eyes. And I didn't underline the words here, but yes, saw in this example is a conjugation of the word to see, of the verb to see. So I saw it with my own two eyes. So this is something that happened previously. This is saw is the past tense of the verb to see. Whereas the second sentence says she used the saw to cut the wood in half. So in this example, the word saw is used as a noun. A saw is a tool that you can use to cut something in half. Now let's take a look at the word bat. B-A-T. We have a bat. Now both of these words, oh, actually, can you tell me the parts of speech of both of these words? Are they both nouns? Are they both verbs? Are they both adjectives? It's going to be one of those three. Which are they? They both have the same part of speech. Let's take a look at some sentences. The first sentence says, run to first base. Ooh, I have a typo there. After you hit the ball with the bat. Okay, so we're talking about the bat as in a tool or equipment that you use in the sport of baseball. So you hit the ball with the bat. The second sentence says, bats are nocturnal animals. They sleep during the day and stay up at night. So here we are talking about an animal. Okay, so if in the first sentence we are talking about a tool that you use to play baseball, and in the second sentence we are talking about an animal, are both of those nouns, verbs, or adjectives? Well, if you guess nouns, then you are correct because both of those are things, right? Remember, a noun is a person, place, a thing, or an idea. And both the baseball bat and the bat, the nocturnal bat, the animal, are examples of nouns. Okay, so let's take a look at the next word. The next word is palm. Okay, P-A-L-M, palm. The first sentence says, we planted a palm in our yard to provide shade from the sun. So in this example, we are talking about a palm tree. Okay, I live in Florida and there are palm trees everywhere. It is a very popular tree. So we have palms everywhere, and there are many different types of palms or palm trees. And if you come to Florida or if you live in Florida, you will see them all over the state, particularly in South Florida. The second sentence says, my palm got dirty after I touched the wall. So in that instance, we are talking about palm as in the palm of your hand. Okay, so the inside part of your hand is called your palm, and that is a noun, but also a palm as in palm tree is a noun as well. So in both of these instances, palm has a different definition, but it still has the same part of speech of a noun. What about this one? Rose. Okay, we see the flower, the picture of the flower up at the top left, but what about the image to the bottom on the right? Can you think of the definition for rose in that instance? Well, let's see. Okay, the first sentence says, the rose died because I forgot to water it. And unfortunately, that's very true of me. I have some flowers at home right now that are wilting away because I forget to water them. But in this example, we're talking about a rose as in a plant or a living organism. So that is a noun. In the second sentence, it says, I rose from the chair after sitting for hours. So rose it's used right now as the past tense of the verb rise or to rise. So this happened sometime in the past. We're talking about a past event. At some point, I rose or stood up from the chair after sitting for hours. Okay, so in the second instance or the second sentence, Rose is being used as a verb, and it is the past tense of the verb to rise. Now, again, make sure that you turn on the notifications and hit subscribe if you enjoy this content. There is plenty more for you. Be sure to take a look at the videos that I have posted for our weekly spelling lists. Make sure that you do that because they will be helpful if you are learning English and you want to learn to spell, or if you're looking to increase your vocabulary. So our next word is trip. Okay, there are two definitions that I could think of for trip, or two meanings for the word trip, and let's take a look at both of them now. So the first sentence says, I am going on a trip to New York City. So in this example, a trip is used maybe as a vacation, or you can take a leisurely trip somewhere, you can take a work trip somewhere, but it is meaning that you are traveling from some place to another destination. So in this example, I'm going on a trip. Where am I going? I am going to New York City. And this is being used as a noun. A trip is like an idea. So remember, a noun is a person, place, a thing, or an idea. In this example, a trip would be an idea. It's not a tangible thing. It's nothing that you can actually touch or see, but you are going on a trip. And where are you going? You are going to New York City. The second sentence says, be careful not to trip over the cord. I don't want you to fall. So in this example, can you tell me the part of speech of the word trip? Well, if you guessed verb, you are correct. So this sentence is saying, I do not want you to fall over the cord. So be sure not to trip over the cord because I don't want you to fall. All right, and our next example is, let's see what comes up. Ooh, tie. 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 And I just thought of a definition that I did not put in the presentation. So there are probably many more definitions to that. Tell me in the comments if you know what that third definition is that I am thinking of. But you can see two images here, and let's go through some sentences. So the first sentence says, I always buy my dad a tie for Father's Day because I don't know what else to get him. So in that first example, we are talking about a tie that men traditionally wear with their shirts or with their suits, but it's that piece of fabric that is tied together around someone's neck and used as a piece of apparel. So in this example, tie is a noun. It is a thing. It is a tangible thing that you can touch and feel and hold, and that is typically worn around the neck. Now here's another example. There are 30 different ways to tie a knot. So in this example, tie is used as a verb. You are fashioning a knot or tying a knot. Now, the third example that I thought of that is not included in this presentation is, for instance, let's think about a sporting event. If you are watching football or soccer, as we call it here in the States, a lot of times football teams have a draw or a tie, right? When the score is equal, when both teams score the same amount of goals, that is a tie. So I watched a Manchester United game yesterday and both teams tied. Okay, so the score was tied. So that would be another example or another meaning for the word tie. And that one, again, I did not include it there, but it is commonly used as well. If you can think of any other good examples or sentences for the word tie, let me know in the comments. And our next word is left. So we have a picture of a directional symbol, and this one is a little misleading, but there is a picture of a jar, and I will explain how that relates to the word left in a second. Okay, so the first definition says, or the first sentence, says, if you look to the left, you will see Taylor Swift's house. So this is the directional use of the word left. So maybe you are taking a tour of Stars Homes in Hollywood, and the tour guide says, look to the left and you'll see so and so's house, or look to the right and you will see, whatever monument is to the right. So the person is telling you directionally where you need to look. The second sentence says, there are no more cookies left in the jar. So here, left is used in place of the word remaining. So there are no more cookies remaining in the jar. So if you look in the cookie jar, the jar will be empty because there are no more cookies left. They have all been eaten by someone, probably me, but they have all been eaten and there are no cookies left or remaining in the jar. All right, so band is the next word, and this is an example of a word that has multiple meanings, okay? If you were to look up the word band dictionary, you would probably find at least 5 meanings for the word, but we are not going to go through all of those today, just some of the most commonly used words or definitions for the word band. Okay, so the first sentence says, if we band together, it will be a lot easier to find our way out of the woods. So in this example, band is being used in place of the word maybe stick. So if we stick together or if we stay together, it will be a lot easier to find our way out of the woods. So that is being used as a verb. The second sentence says, she quit the band, and so now we need to find a new drummer. So in this example, band is being used as a noun, and it is a music or a musical group, a group of individuals who play different instruments and they perform together in a band. So my question to you is, what is your favorite band? If you can think of one, put it in the comments and let me know. The third sentence here is, we decorated bands and put them around our arms to show our school spirit. So in this example, we're talking about a piece of fabric that can be tied around something. In this example, we're talking about, an armband or a band that can be tied around maybe your leg, maybe something like a bandage, but it is a physical, tangible thing. So this is a noun, and that's another way that it can be used. Also, another one that I thought of would be something like a wedding band or a piece of metal, gold, silver, whatever, that you would wear on your finger as it relates to you being married. So that's another example or another definition or meaning of the word band. So, like a ring. So, again, this is a word that has multiple meanings, multiple definitions, but they are all spelled the same and they are all pronounced the same. So, again, that is indicative of a homonym. So, or again, homo meaning same and nym meaning word. So, it is a same word, but it has different definitions or different meanings. Okay? And if you can think of any other definitions for the word band, let me know. All right, so this next one is fly. What does it mean to fly, or what is a fly? So I have two sentences here. The first one says, if I could choose a superpower, it would be the ability to fly. So I want to fly like a unicorn, or like Batman, or I'm trying to think of other characters that can fly. Some of those characters in the Avengers movies. I can't think of their names right now. Falcon, maybe. That sounds about right. But those are, thinking about Batman and Falcon, those are superheroes whose ability is to fly. So think about it too. Whenever, or for the most part, when we talk about verbs, what do they have? What word comes before them? What's the preceding word? To. So that's indicative of a verb, to fly. Okay, so I want the ability to fly. The second example, or the second sentence says, the fly kept buzzing around my face, so I smacked him with my shoe. So in that example, we are talking about those pesky little critters with wings. They actually do fly, like in the first example, or the first meaning, the first definition. But we are talking specifically about the insect. So that is a noun, an insect who just happens to have the ability to fly. So you could actually use fly twice in a sentence, yet use different meanings. Okay, so if you can give me an example, let me know. Put it in the comments. How would you use the word fly twice in a sentence using both of the definitions or meanings that I gave you? See if you can do that. And if you can, again, put it in the comments, please. All right, so one more time, please be sure to subscribe. As I said, there is a lot of content that I want to share with you, and be sure to turn on those notifications. All right, so let's take a look at our next example. We have the word fall. And the picture at the bottom on the right looks similar to the one that we had for trip, doesn't it? But this one has a slightly different meaning. Okay, so the first sentence says, if I fall off the chair, I will be so embarrassed. Okay, so if I fall, so that means, maybe I'm standing on the chair trying to reach something, or I'm sitting on the chair, but I'm losing my balance and I am going to fall. So that is a verb, that is an action, that is something that is going to happen. So that means I am going to hit the ground or hit the floor after I fall off of the chair. The second sentence says, when summer ends, fall begins, and the leaves on the trees turn color. So in this sentence, fall is used as a noun. It is a time of year, and that would be a season. So we're talking about the season of fall or autumn. So we are talking about that time period that is after summer but before winter. And I apologize if you hear that plane in the background. There's an airport near where I am, so you may hear that periodically throughout the videos. Okay, so again, the same word, but two completely different definitions. Now, what about bowl? We have two images here for the word bowl. The first sentence says, I like to bowl in my spare time, even though I can never, oh, and we have a typo there, knock, that should be K-N-O-C-K. Let's get rid of that W. Oh, and another typo, knock down all of the pins. So I like to I like to bowl in my spare time, even though I can never knock down all of the pins. So in this example, again, we have that word to in front of the word bowl. So we know that we are talking about what part of speech? Is that a noun, a verb, or an adjective in this example? How is the word bowl being used? If you guessed it is a verb or being used as a verb, you are correct. So I like to bowl, or we're talking about the sport of bowling in my spare time. The second sentence says, I did not have a clean bowl, so I ate my cereal out of a cup. And in this example, bowl is being referred to as a container that you use to typically hold food. So you can eat rice out of a bowl or cereal or ice cream. But it is like I said, a container that you use to hold food, and it is a noun. So we have a verb in the first example and a noun in the second example. Now, also make a note of the fact that even though to bowl or bowl is a verb, the word bowling, which is the actual sport, is a noun. Bowling is not a verb. Bowling is a noun. Okay, the next example is, or the next word that we are going to look at is duck. Now, we all know the animal duck, the bird, the duck that's in the image at the top left. But what am I referring to in that image that you see at the bottom right? What is she doing there? And how does that relate to the word duck? Well, let's take a look at the two sentences. The first sentence says, the duck waddled across the grass to get the bread. So in that sentence, we are talking about the actual duck, the animal, the bird that would represent a noun, okay, because we are talking about a living thing. But let's take a look at the second sentence. I had to duck for cover because I did not want her to see me. Why did I not want her to see me? Because I owe her $20. So, in this example, or this meaning for duck, is when you kind of hide. So, you physically, though, with the word duck here means to like crouch down. So, you're not just hiding from someone, but you're doing it in a specific way. So, you are crouching down, you are physically making yourself lower to the ground. And typically you are doing this in order to not be seen. So if someone yells to you, duck, they could either be referring to seeing an actual duck as in the animal, or they are telling you that you need to crouch down or get lower to the floor. So that is how you would use duck in that instance. And if you noticed, there was a to in the word preceding duck. So I had to duck, which means that that is a verb. All right, so let's take a look at the word charge. We don't have any images here, but let's see what that word means. Okay, so the first sentence says, there was a $50 charge on my credit card after I went to dinner with my friends. So this one is a little bit more difficult to define, but in this example, a $50 charge or a charge on your credit card is like a transaction. So there was a transaction in which I now owe someone money. In this instance, it is the credit card company, but I engaged in some sort of monetary transaction or a transaction that had to deal with money. In this second sentence, it says participants at the running of the bulls want the bulls to charge at them even though they could get seriously injured. Okay, so let me make a note too. In the first sentence, the word charge is being used as a noun. You could also use this as a verb and say, I want to charge this $50 dinner on my credit card. Okay, so that's actually another meaning for the word charge, but it pretty much means the same thing. They're both related, like charging something to my credit card or the actual transaction itself. So the $50 charge, they're both pretty much in the same realm. Whereas in the second sentence, the second example, that's a completely different definition. And you'll see, again, I'll read the sentence again. Participants at the running of the bulls want the bulls to charge at them even though they could get seriously injured. So we have that to charge, which means that we are talking about a verb. So this is something that the bulls are actually doing. And in this example, it means that they are moving forward. So they are moving forward in a pretty much in an aggressive way in order to get closer to the people with the intention of pretty much injuring them. So to charge at someone means to move at them in an aggressive way or in an aggressive fashion.